How's it going? Adam Drake here, and today I want to talk a little bit about bleeding shocks, and more specifically, how often you should bleed your shocks if you're using emulsion style caps. Now, the emulsion caps have become kind of the popular cap or go-to for pretty much all makes or models. All the different brands out there, they still offer options for bladders. With bladders, it's not as critical. The temperature changes, you don't really have, or you still will have a change in the pressure in the shock, but the bladder is basically there to kind of have that extra area to compensate for the temperature change. So again, this isn't super critical if you're using bladders, but if you are using emulsion caps and bleeding your shocks to be emulsion style, you'll need to rebleed your shocks more often throughout the race day. The biggest thing, or what's most important, is that if you never want to bleed your shocks like at home in the air conditioning, especially in the middle of the summer, and then go to the track when it's much, much hotter. Shock will end up having a lot of pressure, can actually be so bad. If the temperature change is drastic enough, the shock can actually hydrolock or not even fully compress or be able to bottom out. So it's fine if you want to bleed your shocks at home. Just know that when you get to the track, they will need to be rebled. And what I like to do, especially in the summertime, like a lot of times, for example, a lot of the racing we have here in Southern California starts early in the morning, ends pretty late at night. So you bleed your shocks in the morning, first qualifier, well, could be 15 degrees warmer, 20 degrees warmer by the second qualifier. You're going to need to rebleed your shocks, otherwise you could end up having pressure, car not working properly. Then you wait for a few hours, sun goes down and cools off. It's not super critical. If you've bled your shocks at the hottest part of the day, it's not super critical that you have to rebleed them at night when it cools back down. And in most cases, if the temperature changes enough, you're going to be rebleeding your shocks anyway, because you're going to be changing your oil for the different temperature throughout the day. But the biggest thing is you don't want to bleed your shocks either at the coolest part of the day or in your AC in your hotel room or your house or apartment, because the car is just not going to handle very good if it's not bled for the proper temperature. So sometimes what I'll do if I'm here at home wrenching and I know I'm going to go to the track when it's going to be hot, I'll actually just take my shocks, set them outside so they can actually sit in the sun, because I would always rather bleed the shocks. It's ideal to be at the temperature you're going to race in or slightly hotter. So if I let them sit in the sun, they get a little bit hotter than what I know the hottest part of the day is going to be. I can bleed them, and in most cases, I'll be fine throughout the whole day. But if you're trying to get every little bit of performance, it's really important that you don't bleed your shocks when it's cooler than the temperature when you're going to actually be racing. So again, not as critical when you're using bladder shocks, but for emulsion, I see it now that it's summertime here in Southern California and it's really hot out. Most of the time we're not wrenching outside in the sun. So if we're servicing and doing our shocks, I see some guys come to the track and then, car's not running right, suspension doesn't seem to be working, ride height's a little jacked up, and it's just because the shocks need to be rebled for the hotter weather. So hopefully this helps and just allows you to have a more enjoyable experience, more fun at the track, and better results.